Hi guys! Welcome to my channel, The Wanderless Librarian. I'm Alize, an amateur booktuber, reader, a fan of fantasy and other genres, and I'm quite excited to have you here on this channel for the beginning of this year, 2025. This is me trying to get English videos here, out there. So yeah, I thought a good way to present myself and get to know you as well would be to do a little bookish tag, and I found on the internet an A to Z bookish tag which looks quite promising. Small disclaimer, I briefly skimmed over those questions, those 26 questions, so this is not prepared at all. I'm gonna have to come up with books name, and I'm very bad at them. At remembering what I read last year, just to start with. So I think there is a few questions about my readings in high school, which is so long ago, so let's see how it goes. I might also get some name in French because I am French, and for a big part of my life I was reading in French, so if I don't find the original title of a book, I'll just pop it somewhere on the screen. Alright, let's go. First question, letter A. Also you've read the most books from. Wait. Yeah, Logical Ruling is only 7 books, so Assery does not count. But it would then definitely be Sarah J. Maas. You have the book just behind me. It's all of this. Unfortunately, it is Sarah J. Maas. My husband thinks that she's my favorite writer because I have a lot of books from her, but she writes very long series, and if I start a series I need to know the end, so I have to go through it. And with Throne of Glass having 7 books, maybe an 8th book, I've heard some rumors on the internet. That does populate quite a bit of my shelf. So yeah, definitely Sarah J. Maas. Not my favorite author, however. I went at length last year in a French video. If you ever speak French, you might find that somewhere. But I'm quite disappointed with Crescent City, the series. I haven't read the 3rd book, maybe something I'll do this year, we'll see. But I got quite disappointed with Crescent City, so yeah, we'll see. I do love a series Throne of Glass. I think it's her best work creatively as a fantasy, the universe she's built, but also the character she's built. Akotar is nice, but I'll say a bit more focused on less action, right? It's a bit more fun, like romance, reason, fire. Anyway, not as much as action as I would have liked. And Crescent City, I'm just having some troubles with the marketing around the book, the cliffhanger we have in the volume 2, the Sarah J. Maas universe we're getting, like the multiverse she's trying to build. That was very frustrating for me when I finished book 2 of Crescent City. So I like her books, I like her series, I have a lot of her books. Is it my favorite writer? Absolutely not, but she's always someone worth mentioning when we go to upcoming and current fantasy world, definitely. Alright, B, best sequel ever. This one is complicated. I'm gonna say the All Souls trilogy. I really like the 1st book, but I think book 2 and book 3 were really much more impactful for me, because book 1 you get into the writing style, the position that our main character has, which is she has a very observing point of view. She's not a character that is really proactive, active, getting, you know, in the meat of the action. So yeah, definitely book 2 or 3 of the All Souls trilogy by Deborah Harkness were a bit more punching than book 1. I love this trilogy. I need to read the sequel around one of the secondary characters and then get started into that 2nd cycle she's giving us. But yeah, I recommend if you like urban fantasy. Just the 1st book, I think you need to get into that writing style, and like I say, the pace, the point of view of the main character. The main character herself can be seen a bit, I would say, passive in a way, but the universe is amazing and I love the plot very much. Alright, C, currently reading. I am reading A Gathering of Shadows by V. Schwab. That's a book 2 as well of one of her series, A Darker Shade of Magic, and so far I am loving it. Yeah, I think it's also better than the 1st volume. First book, I liked the first book, but I had trouble really finishing it, and I was reading it while trying to read as much book as possible in 24 hours. So that was definitely not the best book for that, because I was having trouble to enter into the universe. Book 2 is definitely better on that perspective. I'm really within the story, following the character, especially Lila, which I love. So I think I'm halfway through it, so can't wait to see how that finish. And maybe start right away the third, and I think that's the final book of the series. I don't know, I'm a bit confused because she is getting a lot of books out lately. D, drink of choice while reading. At the moment it's a lot of water, but usually when I read I like to have a nice little cup of tea, warm tea, just a cup, or sometimes I'm just doing a teapot fully. So definitely tea, I'll say, but right now this year I've been mainly drinking water, need to stay hydrated. E-reader or physical books. Actually just bought an e-reader, so I am more of a physical book person, but I did gave in the temptation to have an e-reader. I think it's gonna be more practical. I do have to travel a lot lately for work, life, etc., and a book can quickly get heavy in my bag or get damaged as well. I do have, you know, a slight little pocket to protect your book, but sometimes it does get a little bit of an impact on it. So I bought an e-reader, a Kobo. I'll let you know if I like it over the next few months, but for now I quite enjoy it. F, fictional character you will have dated in high school. So this is a famous high school question, and I have no clue, none at all. What was I reading in high school? Memorable. It's like the only thing I can, yeah, the only published book that I can remember of that I was reading in high school, last year of high school of course, is 50 Shades of Grey. I got a friend that brought me into that universe and I read the trilogy. Apart from that, I'm sure I was reading a bit more, especially because I took literary classes, so I read a lot of French classics during that time, but I don't think I was looking into male or female characters as a crush possibilities. It was a lot more analyzing a story. I was reading, however, a lot of fan fiction as well with that friend of mine around. Well, she get me into Draco Malfoy fiction, which was nice, and there's a lot of fan fiction around One Direction. That was that era. I am that old now, but so yeah, maybe if you crush on One Direction member, and that's why I was reading fan fiction, but on a fiction character, I can't recall. I don't think I had any. Now, however, it's a different topic. In high school, that was definitely not what I was looking into in a book. JJ, glad you gave this book a chance. Which book was I not so much into? The Once and Future Witches by The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Arrow. Yeah, it's a book that I've seen a lot, especially when it got translated in French and published in French. It was everywhere on my Instagram, to the point that I was like, I do not want to read it. I don't know if that happened for you, but when I see a book a bit too much and all that ecstasy around it, I'm just not as interested into reading it anymore. So that was a book that I was not going into full of high expectation. I ended up reading it because a friend of mine advised it, strongly recommended it, so I did read it for him, and it surprised me a lot. I really like that book. I think it's one of my few 5-star read from last year. So yeah, definitely glad I gave him a chance and did not run away from it. H, hidden gem book. I don't know what that question mean, if we're looking into the aesthetic of a book, or a book that was really pleasing with the writing, or is it a book that I really liked, I guess, story-wise. Trying to think. I'll go with another trilogy that got me a bit started on Bookish Social Network. The first book I mentioned here, which is not necessarily, very well known, I guess, in my circle, and that's the Ibis trilogy by Amitav Ghosh. That's a book that was recommended to me during my master around Southeast Asia history during the Opium War. And I don't know why, I had a lot of things to do in my master, a lot of studying and writing reports and everything, but I decided to pick that book up. Struggled reading the first volume because the English is very complicated for, I guess, even more for a non-native speaker. And yeah, I loved it. It's a really like historical testimony in a way. It is fictionalized, but there is so much research going into that period, the different families impacted, the different nationalities, countries at play, and I really liked it. I like the attention to detail that Amitav Ghosh gave to that book, and I definitely think it's an historical fiction that we should talk about a little bit more on this side of the internet. It's liking a bit of a younger audience, I will say, but if you're interested in that part of the world in historical fiction, I definitely recommend that book. If you're an English speaker, go with it. It might be still a bit difficult, I don't know, because the writer is using a lot of how do they say in English, Creole in a way, patois, especially with the character living in India and China, because they mix English with the local languages. So it was a bit difficult for me at the beginning, especially the sailor language, because it just puts the discussion as is. It does not translate them in academic English or anything like that. So as a non-native, it was a bit difficult to get into the story, and I had to be like, oh, it's fine if I don't understand a bit of the dialogues, but it does get better, and I think if you're comfortable in the English language, that should be fine. Else, I am pretty sure it's been translated. It has been translated in French for sure, so it should be translated in other languages as well, and I vividly recommend it. That is a beauty of a story. Important moment in your reading life. When I think about reading and what get me starting to read so much and get so much into my favorite genre, which is fantasy, I cannot not mention Harry Potter. Regardless of what you think of J.K. Rowling now and the thing that she's been saying on the internet and publicly as well, J.K. Rowling was a very strong presence in my life as a child. Like, it's like Harry Potter 2 is the first thing that I went to see in the movies, and that terrorized me because I was way too young to watch it. Or was it Harry Potter 1? But it's all the very dear memory of me and my dad, because my dad was gifting me a book. He was always working abroad, not being very present at the time, and whenever I was coming back, he was coming back with a Harry Potter book. So I was always very excited to see him, to spend some time with him, but it was also something we were sharing. He would be bringing me back the rest of the story, and we will be talking about it because he was also reading them. And I do remember when book 7 went out in French, because I was reading French at that time, he bought it, and he did not buy the pocket version. He bought like we have like the grand format in French. It was not an hardcover, it was still paperback, but the grand format, and that's what we have when the book just got published. So we did not wait for the pocket version because we were both too eager to read it, but he only bought one copy and I had to wait for him to finish, and I remember the frustration of it. So yeah, that's a very, very nice memory I hold about reading, and definitely something that shaped my taste as a reader. Jay just finished reading, so before reading V. Schwab, I was reading Assistant to the Villain by Anna Merrill. That was nice, a bit more disappointed, I think. I think that's one of those books that I've seen everywhere, and so my expectations were very high. I wanted a morally grey character, I wanted a gripping story that I would not be able to get out of. I found it a bit flat, except for the ending when we have chaos and cliffhanger and plot twist, and that was amazing. But yeah, that's my last read. Kinds of book you won't read. I'm not a big fan of horror books. I tend to dream about my reading or the latest series episode I was watching before going to bed, so a horror book will definitely give me nightmares, and I'm not just a big fan of it. Another thing I will not read is dark romance. That's definitely not the genre for me. and anything with bikers in it I can't. Usually, and strangely, usually bikers book that my friend recommend to me tends to be dark romance as well, so yeah, maybe there's a theme here, something that I don't like, but I would say that will be that books. I'm quite curious about reading memoir, which I've never read except the Journal of Anne Frank when I was a kid, so maybe that's something I'll try to do this year as well. L, longest book you've read. I think that would be The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. It was definitely a doorstopper and I had to go twice in it. The first time I tried reading it, it was so difficult. So too much details. For one, the fantasy with too much detail. That's usually what I like, so that was not very coherent of myself. And I gave it a shot a few months later and I just loved it. I could not stop it. But it was a long read because it's a very long book. And that's why I still haven't read the prequel, because it's big. It will take me months, I think, to finish it. M, major book hangover because of. So by book hangover, I will understand when I can't read anything else, but because I've read something so great, and that will be The Invisible Life of Adilari by V. Schwab. I think I've read that 3 years ago now, and it emptied me. I found it so poetic, the story. It's a slow story as well, with a very mundane scene in it, but I loved it so much. I could not tell you why I loved it so much, but the poetry of it was beautiful. The scenery, the imagery, the fact that she placed it in France, old France as well, for some passage scenes and character background. Yeah, I loved it so much. And that's the first book I've read from V. Schwab, and I do like her now. I read a lot of her other books, so yeah, it's a nice way to get to know her writing style. And number of bookcases you own. So as you can see behind me, I have shelves, not bookcase. So I count that as one bookcase. Also, it might fit 2 Billies here, I don't know, but we'll count it at one. I then have a Billy over there that you can't see, which my French book, so that's 2. And I have a third one with non-fiction books in my husband's office. So 3 Billy, 3 bookcase. I do have a 4th one, but it's completely empty, so let's not count it. But yeah, 3 bookcases, which is a nice number of books when you have to move house. Let me tell you, it's way too much books to move around. Tried that last year. Oh, one book you've read multiple times. I do not like rereading my books. I don't know for you, but I'm always eager to discover new stories. If I can't remember a book anymore, then for me it just means that it was not as important or the message faded away, but I rarely feel the need to go back into a book. The only exception so far is L'éternité n'est pas de trop by François Chen. I'll put the English title somewhere here, and it's a very cute philosophical love story set in ancient, not so ancient, but set in a few centuries old China, let's say. It's based on a Chinese, I think it's based on a Chinese love story that François Chen found, yeah, in a monastery somewhere, and just transposed it in a way. I won't say translated it, because I think he did change a few things from that story, but he made it his own and then got us that, yeah, very nice piece. It's a very short book, but it's very, very nice book, and I do cry when I read it. I lended it to a friend a couple of months ago, and she didn't like it as much as I did. But that's what I like so much with Chinese literature and the writing style, is the slowness of the story, the contemplative, again, aspect of the narration, and the characters built and the relationship they have with one another. So yeah, I don't know if it exists in English, but I would also recommend it. Preferred place to read, that's for letter P. If I would be at my parents' when I was young, I like to read by the fireplace, when, especially in winter or on a rainy day. I don't have a fireplace here in Portugal, it's not something that exists a lot, so I will definitely say in this room because that's where I have the most light, and my new sofa is very, very comfy. It will always depend, as long as, you know, I have a nice blanket if I'm cold and a pillow for my back, I'll be fine wherever you put me. Phew, quotes that inspires you, gives you the feels. I'm gonna pass this question. This is something I need to be a bit more careful with this year, and I want to be more careful with this year, is I do not done some quotes of some books when something really, I find it very well written, but I don't necessarily remember them. It just make me pause in my reading, and that is it. So I think if we take Ascent to the Villain, which I finished recently, one of the quotes that kind of marked me is about how everyone is a villain, it's just that her villain is in the light, so she knows he is here. But that's my issue, is I don't remember exactly the wording of a quote. It's not like poetry or a song that I could be able to hum to myself and remember the lyrics. So yeah. R. Reading regrets. I regret starting Crescent City. I guess let's say that's my reading regret, is I wish I would have not listened to my friend and read Crescent City and just stop at Akuta and being like, that's fine, that's all the series that she finished, Throne of Glass, Akuta, I do not need more, because that book number 2, I am still angry at it, clearly. Furious even sometimes if you let me go on a tangent. So yeah, I do regret reading Crescent City. Another one I regret might be a few of those dark romance and biker books that I mentioned that definitely terrorize me, and I don't want to think about it anymore. S. Series you started but need to finish. There is way too much of them. So we have The Priory of the Orange Tree. I need to read the prequel. A Darker Shade of Magic, I'm in book 2. I have All Souls trilogy. Well, trilogy is finished, but the rest of the books she published, I do need to read them. Red Rising, I have Dark Rise to read, I think, on my TBR. Yeah, Dark Rise, so that's another one. Rivers of London by Ben Aromovich, which I love as well, but it's a very long series and I'm not there yet. I still need to read a bit more of it. And let me check my books. Godbreaker, I think. Who is that? Anna. I put the name on the screen. Forgot the name. But I think book 2 is Sunbringer, and there is book 3 coming out this year, so I need to finish that as well. The Luminaries by Susan Dennett as well. I only read the first book, and I have the second book with me since last year, and I need to read that. And I think that's it. Hopefully. There might be more. There is some series I want to start, so let's see how it goes. T. 3 of your all-time favorite books. So all-time favorite books. This is difficult because, like I said, I don't remember books that I read 10 years ago. I will definitely say Ravage by Barjavel. That's a French book. I can't find an English translation for my husband, so yeah, it's a dystopia. It's amazing. All time, that's complicated. I can't mention, the rest will be for the last 2 years, I think, which will be the All Soul trilogy in terms of fantasy. I really loved this book, and I should have definitely prepared this question a bit more. Witch King by Martha Wells, that I've read 2 years ago, and I can't believe that I thought it was a standalone. Very, very happy to know that we're gonna have a book 2 soon. So yeah, that's the 3. Ravage, All Soul trilogy, Witch King. It might change in a couple of years, who knows, but that's my list for now. You, unapologetic fangirl for fantasy. If you haven't understood, I love fantasy. No, I love a morally grey villain. So you can give me any book. If the antagonist has a specific goal, a specific way of working that makes sense, I will love it. Fangirl for morally grey villain. V for very excited for this release more than any others, and that would be, I think, what did she name it? So that's the second book of Martha Wells' Witch King. I think it's Queen Demon, the book, and it's finally coming out this year, second half of the year, so very, very, very excited about this. I need to get all of the Illuminate edition because that's the edition I have for the first book. And then another one that I've been waiting for 2 years now is going to be the second tome of Book of Night by Ollie Black, which I really liked the first book. It was difficult to read as well, but I really liked it. And for some reason I'm thinking about Book Thief, but I don't think that's the title of the second volume. It was not announced, at least I didn't find it on Goodreads, but that's my two excited release that I really want, and then I will buy Illuminate version if Illuminate does an edition of it. W, worst reading habit. Worst reading habits. Can you have a bad reading habit? I don't fold the page on the book. I hate it. I do try not to crack the spine, but if I do, I don't mind it, but I won't do it on purpose. It will be because I get into the story. I don't always have bookmarks on me, so I can use whatever I have around me, but I don't think that's a bad reading habit. You want to keep the page. Bad reading habits. Oh, I guess I don't have any. I'm a good reader. No, I don't see anything I don't like. I don't like writing in books, but I'm starting to do it. And again, it's not a habit, it's more spur of the moment thing. Yeah, I don't have any bad reading habits. Sorry. X, mark the spots. The 27th book on your shelf. Okay, let's do that. Let's start from there, I guess. Alright, so 27th book on my shelf, starting by this low corner. We did not go very, very far on my shelf. We did not go very, very far on that shelf. Is Telegraph Avenue by Michael Chabon, which is ironically the first book I've read this year, and I did not like it. So yes, that's the 27th book on my shelf. Why your latest book purchase? And that will be Maiden Mother Crone by Joanne Harris. Maiden Mother Crone. I'm very, very much, and maybe that's something I'm fangirling on as well, but since I read Deborah Harkness, I am very much interested by tellings of witches. So when I saw that title, I did not even check what it was about. I bought the book, and I think it's a compilation of English tales around witches. So that's perfect. That was what I was looking for. And Z, the last letter of the alphabet, last book that kept you way too late. I am thinking because last year I did not read a lot at the end of the year, so it's quite old, but I will say Happy Place by Emily Henry, which I think is the last book that I really liked last year. So it makes sense. I cried a lot for this book, so I'll stick with my choice. Happy Place by Emily Henry. And that's a wrap for the A to Z book tag. I hope you enjoyed it and that allowed you to get to know me a little bit better. But I also want to get to know you, so don't hesitate to jump on the comments and add your own books. Yeah, in any case, thank you for joining. If you enjoy this video, as always on YouTube, please like it and don't forget to follow me on this channel to get more bookish update, let's say. And for myself, I'm gonna go back into reading and I'll see you for the next one. Ciao.